Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I am Jerry. Joining me on this lovely Monday, we've got Terry and Thomas and Paul. We are rolling four deep, which is it's the way I like to go to the club. Just kidding. I don't even know where a club is. So guys, let's go ahead and get into this. Extra time review. I want to start with Paul because I think this will be funny. Paul, what went right on Saturday? Tell me something went right. Give me some positive juju right now.
The bar at half time had an awesome costume.
Did he? What was it?
I don't get to see things that guys wear on like stag do's, bachelor parties. It's like, it looks like he's sitting on somebody's shoulders, but he's not, like around the waist. Yeah, type thing. You could see like the legs flop. It was like a leprechaun. I think it was like an Irish supporters club that had come over. He'd do a cover from Ireland, and he had Fellaini wig on, and he had the like costume around his waist, so it made it look like he was sitting on a leprechaun's shoulders, and he was just having a blast. The guy,
how was his mobility to be able to actually?
Good, I mean, he didn't. I don't know if you know what hit the bar is. Yeah. He came pretty close. Yeah. Like, he had 3 shots, and all 3 times he came within a whisker of catching it. So he clearly been practicing. It wasn't like he was Bambi on ice or anything. And that
all right. So
the Harry Catwick thing that was before kickoff. That was pretty cool as well. I sit in the lower grades. That was really nice to see. But other than those 2 things, I can't really think of anything.
So for those of you who missed the match, Paul's little summary should give you a hint of how things went down. I'll continue with you, Paul, because that was sort of an unfair question. Let's talk about if you're Silva, how would you have done that differently? How would you have started that differently?
Well, it's easy to be clever after the fact, but the team was just too slow. There was not enough pace in the side. I don't know why Iwobi came out for Sigurdsson. Sigurdsson's been very poor all season. Iwobi made a difference when he came on. In his last few times he's come off the bench. And we knew Norwich, a team that is just going to sit compact, going to look to counter when they can. We're not going to be playing through them. If you're going to have any success in their final third, you need to be stretching them around. You need to be creating space for players like Richarlison and Walcott, and Sigurdsson's not going to do that. So I don't know what his thinking was playing Sigurdsson as number 10. And again, I don't know what was going through his mind when he decided to make no changes at all at half time. It was clear that the tactics were not working. He brought Iwobi on, I think, like 9 minutes into the second half, and he was getting stripped before that Norwich scored their first goal. He was getting ready to come on while it was still 0-0, 7 or 8 minutes into the second half. I just don't see the point of that. If you're going to make a change, then make the change at half time. Why make the change less than 10 minutes into the second half with the game still level? It really reeked of a guy who was overthinking. Really, a guy who second guessed himself. It seemed like he'd sat in the changing room thinking, "Do I change it? Do I not change it?" And no, okay, I won't change it. And then barely a few minutes of the second half's gone by, and he's decided to change it. It didn't inspire confidence at all.
All right, so you very similar tack that I took when I thought about this. I know when we recorded the show last week, we were talking about what we feel like the starting 11 is going to be, and I think we were thinking that they were not going to change anybody from the previous game, and that's exactly what happened, except for Terry, who was pretending this was Football Manager for some reason. Confusion, worlds colliding.
Should have had my team, really, shouldn't he?
But I mean, I'm gonna agree with you, Paul. Though I feel like if we were wanting a little more multifaceted attack, that was going to be less predictable. Throwing Iwobi in at that 10 may have been the way to go. That's what I would have done differently. Thomas, what do you feel like you were most disappointed in in that particular match? Was it a particular tactical shift that Silva made or didn't make, or was it in a player, or what do you think?
Probably the centre backs. I thought Mina and Holgate had an absolute shocker for both the goals, to be honest. I mean, Pukki easily outstrengthed Thierry Mina, which is not something we've really come to expect. And then for their second goal, who knows what was going on there with Sigurdsson flying in, playing a through ball into this lad that I've never even heard of, and then he scored. Like, I thought the two centre-backs really let themselves down. I mean, the whole team was poor, and obviously it's easy to go to Morgan Schneider, but as I said last time I was on, I'm not disappointed by him. It's just what I've come to expect. But Thierry Mina, we've come to expect him to be so much stronger and so much better defensively. And Holgate, we know, has been questionable at times, but he's improved so well in the past few weeks. His form's been so good. In this game, they just kind of seem to crumble. Like, Norwich didn't make that many brilliant chances, but like the chances they did make, they were so avoidable by the defence. Like, I was looking at David's kind of thread on it that he did on Twitter. Like, the organisation of the back line, it was like Sidibe was trying to play an offside trap. Who knows where Lucas Digne was, and then the two centre backs, I don't really know what they were doing. So probably the most disappointing, because I've kind of come to expect everyone else being bad in the past few weeks or so. But the two centre backs who've kind of been the bright spot for most of the season were poor for most of the game, I thought.
All right, so you are pointing to the center back pairing as being your biggest disappointment from Saturday. Terry, your turn, my friend. You've been patient, sitting there with all this stuff to say. Your biggest disappointment. Where do you feel like either Silva or the players went wrong? And where, your biggest peak of anger and agitation?
It was clear that changes should have been made at half time. The first half, we were lucky to be 0-0. Norwich had a couple of chances in the first half where they should have scored. There was one where Pickford bailed us out after they'd gone through on goal. I think it was 3-on-1 against Thierry Mina or something like that. It was unbelievable. But the lineup, it was just, I know they beat Southampton, but let's be honest, they tried their best not to beat Southampton with the performance after they come out the second half. But Morgan Schneiderlin is awful. He never passes forward. He doesn't know how to pass forward, and he's like he's playing walking football. But we've got to play him because we've got 3 injuries to centre midfield. We don't have to play Tosin. We don't have to play Sigurdsson. You can't play all 3 of them at the same time. It's too slow. And honestly, if we start that game with Calvert-Lewin maybe up front or Keane, but let's just say Calvert-Lewin rather than go off in another direction, but play Iwobi in the 10. There's a lot more movement, a lot more pace, a lot more everything in the team. If you look across that team as well, it shows the problem is bigger than the situation right now, and we're going to touch on the managers in the next segment, but I think it's bigger than the manager. That team had players from the last 4 managers in it, in equal standing. It wasn't like the odd one player. And if you include Coleman coming on, the last 5, we had both of Allardyce's players. We had Koeman players. Holgate was Martinez, and obviously Coleman was Moyes as well. That when the injuries to the first team players, the likes of Bernard, Andre Gomez, Gbamin, Delph, what's underneath these players that we've bought recently is poor, and it was those players who we still need to replace, the Tosins, the Walcotts, the Schneiderlins. They're not good enough. They weren't good enough to beat Norwich, and that's the real issue at the club. You can change manager as much as you like, but if they're going to have to, if when injuries hit, they've got absolute dross like that to call on, I don't care who we get, they're not going to be able to do much better.
Yeah, the Schneiderlin situation, that's who I got most angry with after the first goal. I'm not sure if Mina needed to be sucked over there to help Holgate out with Pukki, but at the same time, he was there, both of them were there, facing Pukki, and neither one could really see that gap. Now, Sidibe could have come over to help centrally, to give some cover, right? But Schneiderlin is ball watching.
Again.
All right? Again. And the player runs right behind him, and no one, he just fills that lane, and he's wide open. Their chances were so ridiculously clear-cut compared to ours. All right? How many shots got blocked for us, guys? A lot of them, which means we were predictable. All right? That means they were there, ready to block our shots. We had opportunities. I didn't think it was the worst, if you watched the game, it took away the defensive mistakes. We were creating some chances, but they were just so predictable. That was the problem. That so many of them were coming from the same location over and over and over again.
When it comes to Schneiderlin,
It was...
I always have to say this, but because it's as if I can never be disappointed in Schneiderlin because it's just the standard that we all know. And then just link it back to the start here. Just an analogy from The Office. When there's a 7-year-old driving and they crash, you don't blame the 7-year-old for driving. You blame the person that put them there. And at the end of the day, Schneiderlin's just not good enough to play for the club. And we have to keep up. We have to put up with him. We have to keep watching him. But I don't think we could ever say we're disappointed at him because it's just the standard he's at. And in a midfield with him, you're not going to be strong defensively, and he's not going to link up the attack. What's he actually there for? He's the game just bypasses him all the time. Like that video, as disappointing as it is, it's so funny. You must have seen the video of him when I think it's for their first goal when they're breaking through, and he's just kind of jogging back. He's just looking at the game, but like just what I said, like he's just not good enough. And as Terry was saying, there's too many players who just aren't good enough. But it's as if it's so disappointing because we want them to be better, but you can't even expect them to be better because they're just too poor. They're not good enough to play. But because of the injuries, it's what we're forced into. And I could go on for years about injuries. Our injuries this season has been so disappointing, but it's not all down to that, obviously, because they had ample opportunity in the summer to bring in replacements. They've had 2 windows now. They had January last year as well. But the problem is, I'm kind of just reinforcing what Terry said here. After the injuries, we've got absolutely nothing, and that's just not good enough.
Paul, do you feel like you look at someone? Do you feel like if we were to bring a new manager in, we'll get here. By the way, but when you watch, think about the performance that happened on Saturday. Do you look at the players that played and think a new manager could have turned something like that around and had gotten a better result there, or do you think it really is just the fact that the players at this point are just not up to it, and right now we need to be thinking about how to drag points out of games?
I think most of the players that we have in our squad are good enough to be finishing in the top half of the table, all around there. I think the players are suffering from just having a real lack of plan. I think plan is the word. I don't know what our style of play is. I don't know what they're told to do. I don't know what they try and build. I'd love to know what goes on during like a sort of like a pre-game like tactics kind of meeting. What is our style of play? I knew what the style of play was under David Moyes. We were going to play the percentages. We were just going to graft and not have a lot of individuality. I knew what the style of play was under Martin. We're just going to pass the other team to death, even if we didn't have the players to do it.
Or ourselves. We will pass ourselves to death.
I sort of knew what it was with Koeman. It was just give it to Lukaku. Just everything through Lukaku. Everything to Lukaku. And I knew what it was under Allardyce. Just hoof the ball and kick people. I don't know what Marco Silva's style of play is. So, and I can only imagine the players don't know what style of play. As Terry pointed out, there's a lot of players there who were signed by different managers. They all have their own strengths. They all have their own style of play that they're suited to, and it just seems like there's no sort of like they're all pulled together and they're all said, listen, you do this, you do this. If this happens, you react this way. It just seems like they're all just pushed out there and they're told to wing it and just do it by the seat of the pants, for lack of a better word. It really looks like 11 individuals who've just been pulled in and said, if you just do your own thing and hopefully it works. Hopefully the other team are too crap to cope with you, and if the other team are organised, then we're going to lose. I can't remember the last time we beat a team that was really well organised. Every time we've got a big win in the last 7-8 months, it's been against a team that's just been in disarray, or it's been against a team that just isn't playing for the manager, or a team that just can't be bothered on the day. You look at United; they were in a shambles. Arsenal don't know what they're doing under Emery when we beat them. Southampton, who we beat the other week, are probably the worst team in the league. Who else we beat? West Ham are probably the second worst team in the league. I don't know. We're not going forward. I don't know what the big idea is. It goes back to plan. I don't know what we set our stall out to do. And I think it's about time a manager who did have an idea, at least. Maybe it turned out to be a crap idea, like Martinez's was, or Allardyce's was, but just have a manager who seems to know what he's doing, type thing. We all can see what the manager's trying to get across to the players, because I can't see anything Silva's trying to get across to players. It just seems like he sends them out there and they're all looking at each other, not sure what to do.
Here's the part where I'm probably really naive, so just bear with me, guys.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination. I do think clearly there is a plan, you know what I mean? But I'm with you, Paul. There are times where it doesn't feel like we can see it. You know, first half, we have a little flurry where we were attacking, and pressing really well. And we got several chances kind of in a row in the first half. But the rest of it was low urgency. That's what really stuck out to me in the first half. We were not trying, it's almost like we were overly patient. You know, and I feel like maybe that is something that is it's like we go from being overly patient to frantic in the span of in just such a short amount of time. All right, we were just chilling first half. It's like, oh, we're just going to pass the ball around. They got more of the chances, but we'll get the ball. We'll get the ball, guys. It's cool. We'll be all right. You know, that's what it felt like. Our pressing was very much, it was almost non-existent. It was really ineffective against Norwich first half. Second half, I think we turned some things around. We retained more of the ball second half, or at least it felt like it anyway. We did more with it. But it's weird that it takes a half to get a sense of urgency going. It's a speed of play thing for our players up here. You know, why we didn't immediately go out and try to take it to them in the first half. We need the game. We want them on their heels. Why? Why hang back and chill first half? I just don't understand that. And that's a motivation problem, and that might come from Silva as well. Thomas, you look like you got something.
Oh, yeah. I spoke to Chris from Talking Norwich City in the opposition view, and we were talking about how bad their away form is, and he said, all you need to do to beat us away is just come at us in the first few minutes, and apparently they just buckle. Their whole away form this season has been they're under pressure for the first 10 minutes and they buckle. What did we do? We went out, we passed it around, and we were laboured, we were slow, we didn't press. It was like, it's so simple how to beat this team. It gets more complicated as you go up the league, but this is Norwich City, who scored, but prior to coming to Goodison Park, they scored one goal away all season. That's even worse than us. Like, our away record's bad, theirs is even worse. And it was like, they were waiting. They came and they were like, "Go on then, attack us." And we were like, "You know what? No." And it's like, why do we do it? Is it a Silva thing? Is it because at the end of the day, we've always been the team that teams come to if they're in a bad run of form or a player needs to score. As much as we like to get rid of the mentality, or we don't like this or we don't like that, that's just what we are at the end of the day. This team came to Goodison Park having scored once on the first day of the season against Liverpool in a 4-1 loss, and since then they hadn't even scored. Tim Krul for most of the season he's been quite poor. They conceded a lot of goals, and I thought he had a decent game against us. I thought he made a couple of decent saves in our kind of flurry of activity on the 75th minute, which sadly I actually managed to miss, because obviously the one man here whose job it is to watch the game and commentate, my stream switched over to the Wolves versus Bournemouth game, so I actually just had to listen to the radio. But that kind of flurry of activity, I thought we just make rubbish players look good all the time, and it's a completely our own downfall. Like Norwich, they can play some football, but you look at their side. I don't mean any disrespect to any of them, more than Norwich fans, but I can't even name a full Norwich lineup because they don't have big names. They're not a particularly brilliant side, and we just let them play however they wanted to, and it was absolutely embarrassing from us yet again.
Terry, if that match represented why Silva should go, all right, if that particular match was your argument, do you have a specific reason Is there anything besides the stuff we've mentioned where you can point to and say that is a reason to sack a manager based on the evidence from Saturday?
Yeah, because it was indicative of a long-term problem, which is if we concede the first goal, you may as well go home and stop watching, because we always lose if we concede the first goal, and that in and of itself is a sackable offence.
That was much briefer than I was expecting. I was expecting like, oh, I wrote this down. Hold on. You know, that was very brief. Congrats on that.
Yeah. Oh no, it's just, you know, there's arguments can be made, you know, like, oh, he's forced into using a lot of players that aren't first teamers that he didn't bring in, etc., etc. Okay, that's one argument, but another argument is, as soon as we ever come back from being behind under this manager? It's like, and no, and it doesn't matter who we're playing, home or away. If we concede first, that's it, and that is just, it's a, you know, it's a felony. It just can't be. It's not a forgivable statistic or trend. It's something that, you know, will cost the manager his job, and, you know, looks like it's going to.
Anything else on this one, guys? We need to get more specific about the manager in the next segment. Anything? I mean, I'm ready to move on. I want to get this. I want to be exorcised. Get this demon out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You guys good? Anything that we haven't mentioned?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I feel like this is a. I got a bunch of other stuff written down here, but I feel like this is almost a dead horse. Yes. You know what I mean? It just feels like a dead horse. Just continue to beat it. He's over there beating that dead horse. If you watch South Park. So that's. I guess that's it. But is that it for Silva? We are going to talk about him in the next segment. So stay tuned. But for now, if you're digging the videos, please subscribe to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate it. If you want more Thomas, check out his Twitter. He'll tell you when and where he's going to be. He tends to do social media for the Toffee Blues account. So if you see someone with like dazzling wit who's commenting on the games, it's Thomas. And if you see someone you're like, oh, I don't agree with that, someone else has hacked the account. It's not Thomas. All right? So just so you know. But he also does some analysis on the Toffee Blues website, so look out for that. If you want more Paul, how does one get more Paul? Paul? Anything I need to plug, basically, besides your commentary on life, love, and the topic?
Hey, you want more Paul, you pay some...
What?
If you want more Paul, you pay some very large premium rate.
If you want to subscribe to Paul in general, as a person, as a human, all right?
Oh, you mean as in Twitter account? Yes. On my Twitter account.
Check his Twitter, guys, and you'll get lots of Paul. He's got spicy takes for all. You hear that? I'm turning you into a rhyme. You're welcome. You now have a rhyme, Paul. And Terry, they let Terry drop his knowledge on the Liverpool Echo fan jury. So check him out there. Look at his Twitter. Yeah, he's a finger wagging sort of fellow. So he's gonna wag some fingers at the world. So check out his Twitter for that. See that? There it is. All right, guys, let's move on. I heard a rumor that there's something up with our manager. Maybe we should talk about it. All right. Much love to everybody. We'll see you in a little bit. Bye.